The Sacramento Kings are still one of the biggest teams to watch on the trade market, and league executives believe their roster is far from settled. Even though the season is approaching, front offices across the NBA are expected to stay active until February 2027 trade deadline. Several free agents remain unsigned. More sign-and trade deals are possible, and many organizations are waiting to see how rivals reshape their rosters before making their own moves. The biggest name still surrounded by trade speculation is Domantas Sabonis. Sacramento has been listening to offers for months, but no deal has come close to matching what the organization wants. Earlier trade discussions reportedly included teams like the Toronto Raptors, who at one point were weighing Sabonis against other star options. Nothing materialized, and the Kings have continued to hold onto their all-star center. Sabonis' contract has become one of the biggest obstacles. He is still owed nearly $94 million over the next 2 seasons, with annual salaries approaching the $50 million range. That type of financial commitment limits the number of teams capable of making a realistic offer. His injury issues last season have also made some franchises more cautious about paying such a high price. Around the league, the belief is that a deal only becomes realistic if Sacramento lowers its asking price considerably. Detroit was one team linked to Sabonis in trade conversations. Reports suggested the Kings explored a framework involving young center Jalen Duren, but those talks never gained traction. Detroit values Duren as part of its long-term foundation, making it difficult to find common ground. Sacramento's situation is further complicated because the team also carries another massive contract in Zach LaVine. LaVine recently exercised his player option, leaving roughly $48 million on the Kings' payroll. While he remains a productive scorer, his trade value has cooled around the league. Rival executives believe Sacramento may wait until closer to the trade deadline, hoping strong performances increases market value. Earlier this year, the Kings had reportedly explored moving multiple veterans, including DeMar DeRozan, but those efforts never resulted in significant returns. Another player generating increasing attention is Michael Porter Jr. Brooklyn is reportedly evaluating every option with him. League sources describe the Nets as operating in a buy high or sell later mindset. If another team presents a strong package, Brooklyn could move Porter immediately. If not, the organization may keep him and hope his value continues to rise. Porter carries an expiring contract worth around $40 million, making him especially attractive to teams seeking scoring without committing to long-term salary. He remains one of Brooklyn's most productive offensive players, averaging roughly 24 points while stretching defenses with elite outside shooting. His combination of size and scoring continues to draw interest despite concerns over his injury history. Several teams have reportedly monitored Porter closely, including the Charlotte Hornets and the Los Angeles Clippers. Charlotte, in particular, has financial flexibility through a large trade exception that could help facilitate a complicated transaction. Brooklyn, meanwhile, faces another important decision because Porter has become eligible for an extension. If negotiations stall, league insiders believe he could eventually request a trade rather than risk entering free agency without long-term security. His back injuries remain part of every discussion. General managers acknowledge his talent, but they also recognize that medical history affects contract negotiations. That uncertainty is one reason why Brooklyn has not rushed into an extension. The franchise wants to evaluate both his health and his long-term fit before making another major financial commitment. One intriguing possibility discussed by NBA insiders involves the Golden State Warriors. If Jimmy Butler continues recovering from injury and Golden State looks for another elite scoring forward, Porter could become an appealing target. Such a deal would likely require multiple draft picks because Brooklyn has little incentive to move him cheaply unless it decides to fully reset its roster. For now, both Sacramento and Brooklyn remain two of the most closely watched organizations in the league. Sabonis, LaVine, and Porter all remain legitimate trade candidates, and executives across the NBA expect their situations to stay active well into the regular season. As contenders search for upgrades before the February deadline, these names are expected to dominate trade conversations and could reshape the balance of power across the league before the postseason begins. The Sacramento Kings remain one of the most closely monitored franchises in the NBA because league executives believe major roster changes are still possible before the February 2027 trade deadline. While the regular season is approaching, front offices are far from finished making moves. Several free agents are still available. Sign-and trade scenarios remain on the table, and many teams are deliberately waiting to see how the market develops before committing valuable assets. Around the league, the expectation is that trade activity will intensify once teams have a clearer picture of their strengths and weaknesses during the first half of the season. The biggest storyline continues to center on demand of Sabonis. Sacramento has quietly listened to trade inquiries for months, but no offer has matched the organization's valuation of its all-star center. Rival executives say the Kings are not desperate to move him, yet they are also willing to consider significant offers if they believe the return improves the franchise's long-term future. That balance has kept Sabonis' name circulating in trade discussions without bringing negotiations close to the finish line. One of the largest obstacles is his contract. Sabonis is owed close to $94 million over the next 2 seasons, with yearly salaries approaching the $50 million mark. That financial commitment dramatically limits the number of teams capable of absorbing his deal without sacrificing several key players. Front offices are also weighing the injury concerns that surfaced last season, making many organizations cautious about committing premium draft picks and young talent. Several executives believe a trade only becomes realistic if Sacramento lowers its asking price or accepts a more flexible package. Detroit has repeatedly surfaced as a possible destination because of its collection of young talent. League insiders say discussions involving center Jalen Duren never gained real momentum because the Pistons continue viewing him as an important part of their rebuilding plans. Sacramento also faces another challenge with Zach LaVine's contract. After exercising his player option, LaVine remains one of the highest-paid players on the roster, earning nearly $48 million. Although he is still an explosive scorer, his contract has cooled his market value, and many teams are reluctant to take on that salary without receiving additional incentives. Because of that, league executives expect the Kings to wait until closer to the trade deadline, hoping strong performances increase interest from contenders looking for offensive firepower. Brooklyn finds itself in a very different situation, but one that is attracting just as much attention. Michael Porter Jr. has become one of the league's most intriguing trade candidates because of his unique combination of size, shooting ability, and expiring contract. The Nets are reportedly willing to listen to offers, but they are not rushing into a decision. Executives describe Brooklyn's approach as patient rather than aggressive. If another franchise presents a package built around premium draft capital or promising young players, the Nets could move quickly. If not, they are comfortable allowing Porter to continue increasing his value on the court. Porter's offensive production continues to make him attractive to playoff contenders. His scoring ability, perimeter shooting, and floor spacing fit almost every modern NBA system. However, every conversation eventually returns to the same concern: his history of back injuries. General managers recognize his talent, but they also understand that long-term durability plays a major role in extension negotiations. Brooklyn reportedly wants additional time before deciding whether to invest heavily in another long-term contract. Several organizations are already monitoring the situation